There's a particular organization called the Pink Cross Foundation. It's a very, very wonderful organization for people that fight pornography, for example. And I am amazed, and quite frankly, I would even be proud, if I could even claim to be proud. I don't know that I can. But I would be proud of the sort of endeavors that they are encountering and the sort of works that I'm hearing reports of. Because it was an organization founded by a former pornography actress to fight pornography. And quite frankly, when you see this kind of activity, where people are making a clear distinction between themselves and the evil that would otherwise cause them to be ineffective, the evil that would cause them to be held down, and the evil that would cause them to be, quite frankly, unable to do anything with their lives. When you see people making a clear distinction between that evil and themselves, quite frankly, praying for deliverance, making a clear case against it, it makes it very clear who the bad guys are. Like when the pornography industry, for example, makes all their films, which they make against the Pink Cross, and I've kind of studied this kind of thing for a while now. I've kept up with it. But when the pornography industry makes their films trying to promote pornography against the activities of the Pink Cross, one of the things that we see in that is we see how clear it is that they're wrong. Anybody that has any moral sense at all can see that this is just an evil thing that is, quite frankly, coming to its demise. And none of this would even be possible unless somebody came out, spoke out, made a clear distinction between herself and the evil force, the evil forces. And so, quite frankly, when that distinction is made, then it becomes obvious how to help, or maybe not how to help, but what the problem is. It's not a mystery. And so that's basically the best advice that I think could be given with problems of bloodlust, pornography, or any other similar addictions. See, because without dealing with the underlying issue that causes the chemicals in the brain to be released, the underlying issue, without dealing with that, it is impossible to get out of some of these issues. And the reason why I say it's impossible is because, for example, if you were overweight, well, no, let's give you another example. Let's say you smoke cigarettes. And you smoke cigarettes like a fiend. You smoke so many cigarettes, you smoke way too many cigarettes. And you wanted to quit smoking cigarettes. Well, quite frankly, you may try to wean yourself off. You may try to tell yourself that you're going to quit cigarettes. You may get on the patch even, I don't know. But it's going to be really, really hard for you to quit. And likely what you'll find is that when you do quit, you'll start something else. Whatever it is you start, this something else might be just as bad, if not worse. You may overeat. You may do a whole host of things in replacement for having cigarettes. Now, you could argue, of course, that this isn't always true. You could argue, of course, that you smoked cigarettes at one time and now you don't smoke cigarettes, and there isn't anything evil in your life in replace of the cigarette smoking. Well, maybe so. Maybe there wasn't a deep down demonic evil influence that caused you to smoke to begin with. That caused the brain impulses or whatever the case may be to be the way they were. But quite frankly, it may be somewhat of a rare occurrence. Sort of like somebody that walks into a pornography store and finds a bunch of stuff that they possibly shouldn't be looking at. Might look through it a while, I don't know. May not realize what it is. Maybe they don't get any thrill from it. I don't know. Who knows? And it's quite sensible, given that kind of a problem, that such a person wouldn't have an addiction. Maybe some guy walks into a liquor store one day and has some liquor. And there's nothing wrong with drinking liquor or cigarettes, smoking cigarettes, if you didn't smoke very much of it. But the question is sometimes, how much is too much? And, some guy has a lot of liquor that he buys for a party, and he basically drinks it. And he doesn't have an addiction, and he stops. Well, these might be really rare cases. A lot of people might claim that they're in that kind of camp when they're not. It could be sort of like a psychological tool or bandage, as you will, to imply, that I don't have a problem. But quite frankly, person might. Quite frankly does. And so, really, for the most part, if you think about it, it's a very clear sort of issue. Now, if, for example, you pray and you pray and you pray, and you pray fervently, and nothing happens, which, quite frankly, one could argue is the case, that could very well be the case, then it is likely, or it could be likely, that there may be problems in your life that are preventing you from realizing any sort of response. These problems might be problems of faith. You quite frankly may not believe. You might not believe in the way that you should. You might have other issues. You might have false gods and not realize it. False gods to the extent that you serve them and you make Christ secondary, and when you pray, it may be obvious in your prayers that you're doing that, but it might not be obvious to you. And so, Christ isn't going to serve you if your ultimate goal is to serve a false god, per se. He's not going to serve a false god through you. Clearly not. Clearly not. So, if Christ is working through you, it's because you worship the true and living God. If you worship the true and living God, Christ works through you. I mean, it only makes sense that you would be delivered or could be delivered of these sins. Quite frankly, some would argue that some of these sins are not real issues unless they were to lead to some sort of behaviors that would be bad societal behaviors that would hurt people physically. But whether it's pornography, bloodlust, or some of the other addictions that would be considered sinful, it can be very hard for a person to know what damage that they are causing in society. It may only be the case that they'd only realize what damage they had caused when they get out of these problems. Then it kind of comes to light. I didn't realize. I had never known. And we read about this all the time. If you do research like I do, you read about this all the time. People don't realize. They honestly don't realize. And it's kind of like beggars, poor people. They may not realize the harm that they do to society by being the way they are. Often some of these people really do a lot of harm. They may not realize the harm that they do to society, but really they do a lot of harm, and they may think the injustice is not caused by them, but by the rich that in their view oppress them. When indeed you may find that it's the rich that provide all their needs that these poor people squander, which is often the case. That they squander what they have, and that they can't be trusted with anything. Not even a dime. But yet they feel they're oppressed when they're given everything. So you have to really take all this into consideration. And so I thank you very much for watching. That's right, it's episode 12.
The victory of the cross is won. The devil's damned to hell. The head of the ancient snake is crushed by the foot of the cross. Let us rejoice, let us be glad.